Have you ever tried to get your child's name outside? Once, twice, 5 times, and you shout and you wonder if they even heard you. Between the wind, the playgrounds, the garden hose, the neighborhood noise, and kids who are completely absorbed in what they're doing, it can feel impossible to get their attention without yelling. But what if there was a better way? What if one simple, unique signal could make your child stop, listen, and know, oh, mom or dad want my attention? No repeating, no raising your voice, just one familiar sound that cuts through the noise and captures their attention just for the moment. In today's episode, I'll share a simple method that works. It's easy, it's fun, it's been used in my family for years, and it might just completely change the way your family gets each other's attention, particularly when you are outdoors. Does your child have a speech-language delay and you really want them to talk? Do difficult behaviors derail home life and you know the frustration is a communication struggle? Does your child see a speech therapist and you wonder, what do they do and how can I help? If these or similar questions are in your mind, this podcast is for you. Hello, my name is Dinalynn Rosenbusch. I am a speech-language pathologist that has worked with children from birth to 21 for 3 decades. And in my classrooms, I see you wanting to connect with the heart of your child, but their speech and language skills create a barrier. So if you have a kiddo that has difficult behaviors, needs to expand their language or learn to say speech sounds, and maybe even receives speech therapy, stay tuned. Because in this podcast, you will learn how to use your daily life as a tool to communication practice and how to do that practice. You will become confident knowing you are making the difference you want to make. And you will hear success stories of parents who have navigated these struggles already. We'll do this all while focusing on building deep, meaningful connection and confidence in your kiddo. So grab a cup of coffee along with a notebook and pen. It's time to speak in the way your child's brain understands. And that is the language of play. Welcome back. Before we get into our episode, I want to make an acknowledgement to our sponsor, and that is Clever Ellie. Have you ever been driven somewhere and suddenly realized you forgot the very thing you left home to do? Maybe you went to the second stop on your list before the first. We've all experienced moments like that. What many people don't realize is that same human brain process can sometimes lead a loving parent to forget a child in the back seat. That's why Clever Ellie was created. It's a simple car charger that plugs into your vehicle, and when you turn your car off, the voice reminder says, check the back seat. It's a simple habit that could make a life-saving difference. If you'd like to learn more, follow the link in the show notes. The Language of Play listeners can also receive a free charging cable with their purchase. And now from the Language of Play. I have always worked one-on-one, but currently I've been doing a small group coaching program this summer, and it's been great. I wondered, can people get the same kind of progress working in a group that they get one-on-one? And in this small group setting, I am finding that absolutely that is true. In fact, I'm finding that when one person talks about an issue, the other listeners think, oh, that's pertinent to me too. So you get to learn more than what you were coming for, more than what you were thinking about, and everybody's benefiting. It's been wonderful. This leads me to want to make another group coaching program. If you would like to get on the wait list for when the next round comes up, just email me waitlist and I will put you on that wait list. hello@thelanguageofplay.com. And of course, you find that in the show notes as well. All right, now let's get started with today's episode. Today's episode is practical, just simply practical and fun. It is pertinent to kiddos that are typically developing and kiddos that are not typically developing. It is something that simply makes life easier and more fun. And not terribly surprisingly, this is a way to get your kids to listen better. It is a strategy that works outdoors in large settings, in a big venue where maybe your children get away from you, or maybe you're inside of a building such as a church and maybe they're across the way, or maybe they wander away from you in the grocery store and you want to capture their attention. So I'll tell you a story on how I came to this, and then towards the end of the episode, you will hear what's going on now and also how you might implement in your family, but of course, you do it your way. Many families grew up with a dinner bell outside calling from the farms so that the workers knew to come in. This would have been many years ago that this was super common. But this same idea is happening in this episode. I tried all kinds of things when my kids were small to get their attention when they were across the yard or at a distance from me, or maybe they were all in different locations and I wanted to just make one noise, not shout everybody's attention or go fetch them. I used whistles, and that was inspired by the Captain Von Trapp from The Sound of Music, where he had a whistle, a signal, one for each child. I've tried parts of songs inspired by Mary Poppins and classroom teachers where they'd say things like 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, or if you hear me clap once, and they'd clap. And if the kids didn't listen, if you hear me clap twice, and then they would clap, and eventually she would get everybody's attention. I've tried various animal calls, and that was inspired by nature, like birds. Even like cougar in the distance, you'd hear it roar, and then everything's falling silent. And I'd think, there's something in that. Even when I'd walk in the woods and I'd hear deer, they'd stomp and they'd make a bleating or a snorting, and the little ones knew to run. I tried multiple ways to do something as my kids were small that would be me not straining myself and shouting their names all over the place. I didn't like how it felt for me, and they didn't like when I'd scream their name. During those years, I remembered when I was in college, and I had gone to college in Birmingham, England for a year, and during that time, we had lots of time to go onto the continent. I had gone to Switzerland, and I started learning about the way people communicated across the Alps, and that's what yodeling was actually about. It was before telephones and radios, and people in the Alps would use yodels to communicate to family members or neighbors across mountain valleys. They would communicate between herders that were tending cattle on a distant slope of the mountain. Sometimes it was to gather the cows, which learned to recognize their herder's voice. The signals meant, I'm here, or come home, or everything's okay. As I tried to problem solve this with my family, I started thinking about the yodels and the high, low pitches and how it can carry over a distance. And I thought, man, if they can carry it over mountains, I should be able to carry it across my backyard. And knowing what I know from the classroom, we need to do something that everybody enjoys. I started with the yoo-hoo and tried to get their attention. And it worked, but it wasn't all that fun. Then my kids started calling back with their own signals that they created for themselves, and they'd pick up different animals or do different sounds. And I thought that's fine, because I just simply wanted to know where they are in the yard, if they were up a tree, if they're behind the garage, maybe they're in the garage, where are they playing? And that would work. And then once I'd have their attention, some of the times I would shout, lunch is ready. They eventually started talking to each other with their own little calls too, which they put into their own games. That's when I knew that I was onto something. Fast forward into the next generation. My daughter has been doing that with her children. Now she has her own signature call, and I'll put my hand over the mic so I don't blast you out. She says, cuckoo, cuckoo. I hope that works. It looks like it worked well. So you get the idea that she has her own call that she says, and it's not hard to produce for her, and it sounds like fun. And what ends up happening is that her kids are now trained that this is mom's call. So when they when she calls it out, and she lives on an acreage, when she calls it out, her kids will repeat to her what she says. So they'll shout cuckoo back to her. And then there's this pause that they've learned to have. It's like a 1-second pause, which is super helpful because much of the time you don't need anything more for them than for them to respond to you. You know who is playing where they have run off to. But in the moments that you actually want them to do something, then you have that 1 second to put in a 2 or 3 syllable word, such as lunchtime or come home now. Let's talk about why this actually works. And why it works is because the resonant sound that is produced is different from the surrounding sound. It's different from the thoughts that your kiddos are so engrossed in. It is a familiar sound, it is fun and loving, and it's not overused. And that's why it works. Let me say that again. It resonates different than the sounds around the child. It's different from the sounds inside their head as they're playing and they're engrossed in what they're doing. It is also a familiar, fun, and loving sound. And it's not overused. You don't use it inside the house. You don't use it when they're in front of you. You have a specific use for this sound. And another thing is that it's never, ever used for punishment. So you never use this kind of sound when there's going to be something negative that follows it. Like you don't call your child home to say you're in timeout. So now, not using this sound anyway. Now, what age is this appropriate for? I would say that as soon as your child recognizes their own name and they're able to repeat back to you the kind of call you create, once you've got those kind of skills, your child is going to be able to do this with you. Now, for typically developing kids, I think it starts working effectively, though, around age 4. It's a bit hit or miss for a 3-year-old, but by the time you've got kiddos that are 5 years old, it can be mastered, and really 4-year-old can be pretty mastery at it too if you've got kiddos that are typically developing. Now, what challenge can I give you? I would like to pose for you a challenge to develop a sound that works for your family. Consider where your normal locations are. Are you normally inside, outside? What size of property do you have where you typically lose the kids on? Oftentimes, this is something at a playground where you can get your own kids' attention above, and it cuts through all the screams of the other children that are playing. Your own children will pause and look right at you because they will be familiar with your sound. And at that point, you can instruct them how you want them to go, either with a voice or maybe even with a sign. What was really common with my kids was that I would have my own yoo-hoo. I hope that didn't startle you because I am at the mic. But anyways, I would say that sound even inside a church or a store. It didn't seem like grown-ups responded to it, but my kids knew it. And they knew at that point they would turn to look at me. And sometimes, especially in the church building, they were a ways away. So we had this sign signal that I would use, which was gather and come. And the sign for that is like a lasso in the air, and then you pull it down towards you. So they would know, pick up what you have and come to mom now. And again, part of the reason that it works is because I didn't do it often. I did it when it was time to leave. So they knew when I gave them that freedom that they could be quite a distance away from me. I could see them at the distance, but I didn't need their attention. When it was time, I could say that, and they'd look up, I give them the signal, and then they knew they had to say goodbye to their friends because mom is leaving and they want to come with. When you do this in a fun and loving way, and when they come, you thank them for coming right away, you let them know you're proud of them, this is a connecting point. It is loving and fun, and it's bonding. It becomes very familiar. You teach your intention to your child, and at first you practice, but they get to know that this is a really good and wonderful thing. So now, how do you get started? The first one is what I just said. You teach your intention to your child. And that means you need to take a little bit of time to figure out, what is your plan with this sound? What problem are you trying to solve in your home? I should say home life, because our home life includes space that is outside of our home building. One way to teach your kids, once you figure out what that intention is by playing hide and seek and use the call. And that makes fun happen while the sound of the call you decide to use gets implanted in their ears. And then, of course, the celebration is continuously happening because they follow the call and they find you. And that is the celebration. That is the reward. Playing a game like this just plants laughter and enjoyment into the experience, so it teaches your child quickly that this is a good sound to respond to. They learn it right away. Now, another way to practice it would be if your children are playing separate from you. Say, for example, and you have to match this with what you have actually in your home environment. So I am just going to use what we did because it matches what's in the environment for me. I live on half an acre, so the kids might be playing in the sandbox outside. So I'd say to them, okay, to practice today, you go ahead, play in the sandbox. I'm going to be shouting this call to you. Tell them the call. And then your job is to call back to me. And then listen. That's it. We train the kids to call back and immediately listen. Your job is to have a 2 to 3 syllable word or words that they are to hear in that next 1 second. All right, I haven't done an episode that is a strategy type of episode with one specific strategy for quite a while. Let me know what you think of it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you try your own version and find fun and joy in the process, because often the simplest things can make giant changes in daily life. And this is one of those examples. Write to me, let me know how it turned out. I would love to hear. And all the connections and links are waiting for you in the show notes. And remember, I'm always cheering you on. Hey parents, I hope you found this episode helpful. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who also lives or works with children? I would really appreciate it if you would leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. I read every review, and it lights me up to know that this show is making a difference. Then come join my Facebook community, where you'll meet other parents who are dedicated to helping their children grow too. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for joining me. Now it's time to go. Let's pop our kiddos in the strollers and go look around outdoors and see what we have to talk about.